Chandrayaan 2 was designed for success, Chandrayaan 3 was designed for failure. Space achievements are something that can instill pride. It doesn't need a genius to appreciate the space achievements. In Swadesh, if you see, if you observe keenly, they show at the end he goes to join Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Trivandrum. It's route to sky. Basically, the vehicle we are building is a route to skies. The Indian government has announced the roadmaps for the space till 2040. We are going to build a space station. There's no dearth of challenge for ISRO now. India can rub shoulders with the top 5 nations in the world from the technological capability we have. Media in US and other people covering our space activities in good light, like with awe and respect. The entire economy is going to transform from Earth-based economy to a space-based economy.
MyGov Sathis, welcome to MyGov. This is GDP at MyGov Growth Dreams podcast, our podcast series specially for the youngsters out there trying to create a career for themselves. Today we are here in this absolutely fascinating location, a location that is creating history already. India's first ever privately designed rocket that has been created and also successfully launched from ISRO, Vikram S, and of course a company that was India's first private sector to sign a contract with ISRO as well, being team players and creating history in the Indian space sector. We are here at a Skyroot Aerospace talking to the co-founder Naga Bharath Daka. Bharath, welcome to MyGov.
Hi, correct.
How are you doing? How are you feeling now?
We're good. We're all guns towards getting to our first orbital launch soon. So all of our team is focused towards that goal over the next few months.
Absolutely amazing. We are definitely going to talk about the great strides that you and the company have been making in the Indian private space sector, working closely with ISRO. But we also want to find out about the person that Bharath is. Okay. So if you can tell us a little about how your childhood was like, how your schooling education was like, and kind of tell us how the love and the passion for science and especially space science, how did that develop?
Sure. So I was a normal student from schooling. I mean, normal in sense, not too average, but I was in the top 10 of the class in general. And my father being academically inclined, that naturally inspires, and I was always decently performing at school, and especially from the state I'm in, I was brought up in. There's always a fad for joining IITs in the 10th and 12th standard. That so I being part of the fad, I also got prepared and luckily, fortunately, did well and able to crack JEE. And then I joined IIT Madras, where I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering and microelectronics and VLSI designs in specific. So during the bachelor's, I was basically there used to be space clubs or astronomy clubs. So generally the fascination for space has already been there. Any physics enthusiast will naturally grow a passion for generally space physics in general. So that was always there while I was in college. And and what was unique, the key thing that actually transformed is at that time, while at the end of our BTech, ISRO was coming for campus placements, which is very rare and used to happen only in few years. And while we are passing out, it was a lucky instance that ISRO was coming for campus placements. And at that time, being a space enthusiast, and of course in IITs generally there's a lot of private opportunities to go to. And one thing my thought process was, I was always keen to know what it means to work in an organization, and ISRO is one of the most reputed government research organizations at that time. And so with that intent, so that we can always try, and also it's not that easy to get into a government organization if as an external leave, we need to write an exam and all that stuff. When they came for campus placement, it was something, an opportunity I wanted to try out, and luckily I got admitted and got placed in the rocket center of ISRO called the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, which was a huge boon. It is based in Trivandrum. So I joined, post my graduation, I joined Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Trivandrum, and my co-founder Pavan also, who is from IIT Kharagpur, he is also a space buff, and he sat for ISRO interview, and he also joined like all the from IT Kharagpur at the same time in ISRO, and we both met when we joined ISRO, and we scouted for rooms together, and we were roommates from there on. So that's how our journey into space exploration started.
Amazing.
Such,
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Which year was this when you
So
joined ISRO?
this was in 2012.
2012.
To 2012. Yeah.
And you were there in ISRO till?
I was there in ISRO till 2015, end of 2015, and my co-founder Pawan was there till to 2018 also, 6 years.
Right.
So I worked in the electronics, the core onboard computers group of ISRO, which develops the onboard computer that goes into the launch vehicle. And when we joined ISRO, we were lucky enough. We joined in a phase where the biggest rocket of India, called the Bahubali rocket, they call the LVM-3 rocket, which carried the Chandrayaan 2 mission to moon also. So that rocket was in its final phase of the development, the last 20% phase of development, where the most exciting things of testing, evaluation happens, and few of the design aspects also happen. So at that part, like we got to work hands-on on the developmental phase of that rocket, and got to see it fruition. Like while we were there, it get to its first launch, and it's one of the very first rocket. It has seen no failures from the first launch. So getting a chance to work on such a huge rocket hands-on was a huge boon for us, and we learnt a lot on the systemic rigor and the technical rigor that goes into the design review process, the testing review process. So that was a huge learning. Like a space or a rocket is a system of systems. Basically, it is not a single system. So like there are n things that can go wrong if you don't have enough care with respect to the technical rigor you go through. So that is a huge learning aptitude we gained while we were at ISRO, and it was immensely useful in our journey at Skyroot also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those 3.5 years, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
that you were at
Yeah,
ISRO,
yeah.
3.5 years for you, 6+
Yes,
for Pawan.
yeah.
What was the time that made you both, or you personally, decide that incredible experience that I've gathered here,
Yeah.
now I want to start something of my own and then help both the government, the country, on a worldwide basis, take space exploration to the next level? What made you decide that now it's something that I want to start on my own?
Yeah. So while we were at ISRO, like on one hand, it was a huge technical learning experience with respect to what it means to build a huge, one of the most complex missions man has ever made, called rockets. Like that visibility to what it means to build them is a huge learning experience. While that has been happening, we've been like we being like more like young, like we're more adept to what's happening in the world also. Like basically we've been following what's happening in US, how the space ecosystem is developing in other in the Western world, and how the private industry is making strides like from decades basically.
Absolutely.
In the Western ecosystem. So we've been seeing that, and while we were there, of course, SpaceX was a huge inspiration. But by then, they just attempted to, at that time they just attempted to land the boosters back, and it was a huge inspiration. And there was a one other small rocket company called Rocket Lab, a New Zealand and US based company. And New Zealand doesn't even have a space ecosystem, like government space program. And there's a rocket company based in New Zealand which attempted its first launch in 2017. And looking at all this, like one conviction we both had for sure is this is an eventuality in India. Like the private space endeavor coming into, like private industry starting up, like entire design capability coming to private industry. But by the time the manufacturing is well privatized, like ISRO, 80% of ISRO rockets are already manufactured well. So the manufacturing ecosystem has already been well privatized. What has not been privatized by then is this design and quality expertise was not privatized, and we felt that is bound to happen. That's an eventuality that it should happen, and we felt that like given the right ecosystem of manufacturing already available, we felt that this is as it anyway bound to happen, we felt that this is something that we should try out. Is the conviction, and it took us more than a year to convince ourselves first, because there's a lot of technological feasibility, and whether we can manufacture, even if we configure a rocket, whether we can entire manufacturing system is there to manufacture it in house, what it means, like who are the vendors to contact to, everything we need to research upfront to like see the techno commercial viability of the project. So it took us some time to convince ourselves, and we met few veterans, ISRO veterans, and we pitched our idea, and they've been like very much supportive, like of the idea and the passion with which we wanted to do it, and that gave us further confidence. And like right from start, we had few ISRO veterans who are working with us and guiding our team from the scratch.
Incredible story. Can you tell us the reason or the thought process behind the name Skyroot? It's a very interesting name.
Okay.
What was the reason behind that? How did that fall in line with the mission of the company?
Sure. What in Skyroot is interesting to you? Yeah, I just wanted to know.
Well, I mean, first of all, Skyroot Aerospace, just because we are launching towards the space, and the journey starts from the sky, but it also has root.
Okay.
So just tell us your thought process behind that. Your empowerments.
Okay, sure. It's a funny story actually. It's like we contemplated on like Skyroot as technically a route to sky. Like route is ROUT route. We basically
the mathematical term.
No, route in means
the route. Yes.
So it's route to sky. Basically, the vehicle we are building is a route to sky, kind of.
Is your route to the sky.
Sky kind of a vague concept, and we just and of course it sounded cool is one of the reason, and then we didn't like how it looks to write ROUTE. It didn't look good to see, to be frank. So we changed the spelling to route, and so Skyroot, though it sounds like route, but Skyroot was named like that, and with that intent. And later, of course, there are few people who have given like good connotation to our, like we are aiming for the skies, but we are rooted on Earth.
Yeah, as I thought. It's aiming for the sky, but the root is there.
And that's frankly an afterthought that has come, but like that has gelled well with our name, and like both. So now we embrace both the definitions.
Absolutely.
As such, and that's how it has manifested.
Lovely. So 2018, you guys started.
Yeah.
What was the start like? Where did the start happen? On what scale did the start happen? And then the next 2-3 years, talk us through that.
Yeah. Rocketry is not something that two people, it's not like a software company where two people can code and develop an app and prove the capability. So nothing can be done without a meaningful team and the money to realize the hardware to test and all. So it needs capital from get-go, unlike an app-based company or a software company. So we need to raise the capital from the beginning. So one of the key risks for raising capital is basically this uncertainty in policy uncertainty is one thing. Like VC ecosystem, like when there is no regulatory clarity on the industry we are getting into, it is very difficult to rise from the VC ecosystem. But luckily, when we started, we happened to meet entrepreneur Mr. Mukesh Bansal, who's a founder of Myntra and CureFit, and so he happened to be a space buff himself, and he had this shared conviction that the privatization of space sector is certainly an eventuality in India. With that trust factor, and of course from our backgrounds, we being from ISRO ourselves, and we coming out and starting this with a conviction has convinced him of the thought process, and we were able to raise a capital of 1.5 million, means 10 crore INR capital in 2018 to start our venture with. So we were able to hire our first 15-20 member team and start building the design of our rocket as such, both the configuration and the engines and everything. So that's how we started. But next, even then, like though we started well, the next 2 years also has not been an easy journey, because we thought we raised capital once, we thought it will be easy to raise further, but it has not been big, because it even further means we need to raise more capital. More capital is not something an individual can invest, and like institutional venture capital fund should invest. But even by then, even in 2019, this clarity on regulatory uncertainty, because any venture capital fund, there are three risks they evaluate. One is technical risk of the startup, like whether how capable this team is to solve that technical risk of the challenge they are trying to solve. One is other is the market risk, how capable, what kind of market risk, whether they can easily capture the market. But one of the unique problem we have is the regulatory risk, basically. So that is something very few venture capital ecosystem can take their bet on, or take their faith, leap of faith on. So it was difficult to raise further capital further on in general. And luckily, by 2020, the space reforms were announced, and in the spree of COVID was a very hard time for other reasons, where we couldn't get our operations done. But due to space reforms that have been announced, and at the verge of it, we are able to raise for further capital of Series A for funding of close to like 90 crores as such. That too from one of the prominent entrepreneurs of Greenco Group, Mr. Anil and Mahesh. They've invested their personal money. So that way, like it was not an easy journey, but the fact that the reforms were announced in the right moment, and we were able to close the further capital in 2020, has made us sustain the hard COVID times and come out of it with success, basically.
So Bharat, you mentioned the reforms. If you can tell us, if you can elaborate a little on that what were the reforms about? What kind of changes did the government bring into the picture, and how did that help the space sector, and especially the private space sector?
So, like the entire space reforms have been brought by the government with a singular motive of like making India impact on global space economy more significant. Just to give you an idea, like India is one nation, like as a space is one sector. India can rub shoulders with the top 5 nations in the world from the technological capability we have, not just from launching satellites, by doing interplanetary missions. We are successful in the first Mars mission with the first attempt, and all this capability as such, we were one of the top 5 nations. But when it comes to space economy as a market, it is a $400 billion market, and it's touted to grow towards $1 trillion in future. But even though we have like all capable launch vehicles and like all the capable space technology, our Indian share of space economy is less than 2% in the world. So this can change. This cannot change just because of more and more government effort, because fundamentally the endeavor of business itself is a private enterprise endeavor. Like so there's a lot of commercial opportunity in space sector, because decades ago the space applications are all with government focus. There were no commercial opportunities. Now in the Earth observation domain, communication domain, lot of commercial opportunities there. There are private companies building satellites, private companies paying for the launch service. Everything has been commercialized. So when there's a lot of commercial opportunities, so private industry should play an active role to take advantage of the commercial opportunity. And India is well known for its cost-effective space missions. Like every one of us know how cost-effective our Mars mission was, or Moon mission was. So that natural India cost advantage will translate to even private industry when they do their space mission. So this has to be taken advantage of, is the key conviction with which and our India share in global space market has to eventually go to a double-digit percentage. Is the key conviction that the government has made, and of course we starting it, like the space companies like us, some of the startups like us starting early also helped, because we've written some white papers to the government saying that this is the need of the hour having these policies, and it's always a chicken and egg problem, right? If there are no players, no policy, always law and policy will follow the technology
Correct.
or the initiative. So because there are space startups already established, also gave government enough impetus that like people are taking their bets and starting companies, and we should make the enabling policy to make them achieve their higher orbits. So with that conviction, like government of India has uh, introduced the space reforms, which not only enabled private industry to operate, but it actually actively mandated the Indian ISRO and ISRO public infrastructure, the testing facilities, the launch facilities, the private industry can utilize them. So that like we need not reinvest on huge capital infrastructure for testing, which will increase our developmental cost. There, with a lot of public money, lot of testing infrastructure is already built in the public sector, and that can be made use of by the private industry. So this enabling policy, not just allowing the private industry to operate and leaving hands, actively handholding and enabling policy to be able to like reduce our developmental costs, has been a huge boon to the entire private industry due to space reforms.
Amazing. You mentioned the collaboration of the private sectors and ISRO, especially for the testing and how much that helped private sector as well. If I'm not wrong, your company was the first to do that with ISRO. The testing that happened in Sriharikota, the launching that happened from Sriharikota. How did this collaboration kickstart? Because it was arguably the first in the history of Indian space.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. So, like as mentioned, our first private or launch of Vikram is called the Prarambh mission, which happened in November 18, 2022, is the first. We became the first private company in entire South Asia to reach space, and this happened in November 2022. And the space regulatory body called InSpace has just been formed 6 months before this event.
Wow.
So the entire regulatory process with respect to what it means to give launch authorization, what it means to take a third-party liability, things like third-party liability insurance, and all these policies and framework have been framed up in 6 months. And the InSpace body also was like a small team. The entire regulatory body also was run like a startup on the run to enable our launch. And we anticipated, honestly, I'll be as honest as possible, when we were building our first rocket, Vikram S, we honestly anticipated that our rocket will be ready and we'll be waiting to get launch permission and waiting. But I can honestly say there is no single day delay due to regulatory permissions for our launch. We were ready to launch when we are ready, and we launched when we are ready. So that is an amazing pace at which the regulatory body that has formed just 6 months prior to our launch has worked and made that happen. So just to give you an example of how efficiently the InSpace worked on that as such. And with respect to even before InSpace has formed, as I mentioned, the space reforms have been announced in 2020, and regulatory body has been formally formed in 2022. In between, in this intermediary time, the ISRO themselves we have signed an MOU with ISRO, with which we became the first company to sign an MOU with ISRO for sharing the facilities. ISRO themselves took this hand-holding role, and we were able to actively use their test facilities even before the space regulatory body has formed. And that journey also was immensely helpful, and ISRO played a great role in getting the policy running and hitting the ground running from get-go without waiting for a government to form a actual separate body that enables this, basically. So that was also hugely helpful in meeting our timelines as well.
Both you and Pawan were former ISRO.
Okay.
So when you went back to ISRO for the first checking, and then when you went back to ISRO and Vikram S launched successfully, what was that moment like? Just from an emotional factor, what was that like?
One of the key, most emotional experience is, I must say, for me personally, was that when we got permission, official, there is a final review that happens called mission readiness review. So where they check the readiness of all the systems, the testing status and everything is well, and they formally convey that we are good to go for launch. So that was one of the most emotional moment for me prior to launch, that it's finally happening, and we were going to launch. So it was a great experience for me. And of course, finally the launch, which is the finger cross moment for all of us. And the fact that we were able to get it right in the very first attempt, and it went well, was a huge confidence booster, not just for us, but for the ISRO community and entire that the space community, uh, where like of course there's a space policy, of course they're doing it, but if they see a private industry taking advantage of it and proving their capability, the confidence and enthusiasm in the ISRO community also to help industry will grow.
Correct.
And that instant of our successful launch is a is played such a role to build confidence, not just for us but also for the ISRO community and the space community, to double down on the policy and like help us actively to get to our next milestones.
Absolutely. And this is the Vikram S launch in 2022 that we're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Which I'll tell my MyGov viewers, Vikram S is India's first privately developed rocket constructed by Skyroot, designed, formed by Skyroot, and then the launch happened at ISRO 2022. That was the start of the collaboration.
Yeah.
If in short, you can tell us how has the collaboration with the partnership with ISRO been like, some of the most key achievements that have happened in these last just 2.5 years, but the partnership has been incredible up until now.
Yes. So indeed, Vikram S is just two space launch, and our next launch of Vikram 1, some of the parts you see here in a factory. So next launch of Vikram 1, also we depend hugely on ISRO. Like we for static, there's something called static test. Like all the big stages, we cannot test anywhere in India. We
Correct.
can only test in a test stand that can take that much thrust of force, and those are only available in Sriharikota. So we successfully tested our stage 2 just few months ago in ISRO, and we will be testing our stage 1 also in ISRO. And not just for testing, even for some of the production activity also, ISRO facilities, they're willing to extend wherever there is no private industry to meet our requirement. ISRO is more than willing, not just for testing, but also for some of the production activities as well. So that has been like a huge help for us to meet our timeline, because if their facility is not there, we don't have any private facility to undergo this activity. And so that way, like it's ISRO has been a pillar of support in our journey towards our orbital launch. And over the next 6 months, we'll be working with them closely, and the huge support we're going to get from them closely over the next 6 months as we get to our orbital launch.
Incredible. The space enthusiasts know the reason, but there are many who don't.
Okay.
Tell us the reason and the thought process behind naming the first series the Vikram series.
Yeah, so the name Vikram is from the founder and the father of Indian space program, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. He has founded, of course, our Chandrayaan 2 moon lander also is named Vikram. So but by this time the name Vikram should be well familiar with the whole Indian community. But Dr. Vikram Sarabhai is like a huge inspiration, because in late 60s, when Indian economy is not so doing not so well, he has the grit and courage to convince the Indian leadership to invest in space program. Because it won't be that evident it need not be that evident for a political leadership at that time, in that economic situation, to have the conviction to invest in space ecosystem. But we see the fruits of it now, like
Now.
5 decades from now, like because we started early, we have our own, like we have total self-reliance in space access technologies, in satellite building, in interplanetary missions. Like what we're going to achieve over the next 15 years also will be very incredible, and that's only been made possible because we started early. And Dr. Vikram Sarabhai has the vision and conviction to convince the Indian leadership then to invest in space ecosystem and drive it forward. So like we all that if there are two transformative moments for Indian space ecosystem, it is that decision of starting space program early in late 1960s, and the next decision that is going to take the Indian space ecosystem to next level is the space reforms that have been introduced in 2020.
Absolutely. You know, Bharat, I want to ask you. You mentioned 1960s and the potential that was recognized by Vikram Sarabhai sir. India has always had incredible talent, incredible minds, minds that have gone out and then made progress for the other countries. So that talent has always been there. The talent in the space sector, in the digital sector has always been there. Why has the paradigm shift happened in the last 10 years when it comes to ISRO and its achievements? The last 10 years, the last half a decade, with achievements happening by the month, the way the private sector came in, the way the reforms happened from the government, what would you say has been the paradigm shift that has caused this massive boost in ISRO's achievements, in the digital boom that has happened, especially in the last one decade?
So basically, ISRO, like it is all ISRO's achievements is a culmination of incremental work they've been doing.
Absolutely.
So it is and it is so like, of course, the right from the Mars mission onwards, ISRO's fame to light among the Indian community itself, the appreciation, because it's a matter of pride for even a school kid can
Totally.
feel pride about our nation's an article that is made from our space has gone to space and gone to a planet
In the first
like,
attempt itself.
in first attempt. So like the space achievements are something that can instill pride even in the smallest of the children, and like even in the innocent of the like it doesn't need a genius to appreciate the space achievements, like I mean, just to put it simply. So that enables a great sense of pride in entire Indian community, large masses of Indian community, and that have been like due to an impetus in the interplanetary missions that have been put over the last decades. We've been able to achieve these interplanetary missions. Like once the first Chandrayaan failed, immediately an approval for the next attempt is given, and we were within few years we tried again and we made. So like if we failed in the first landing attempt, and if the approach was like okay, we've already lost some money and we want to think whether we want to fund it or not. So that approach is not taken. An active conviction that okay, mistakes happen. It's hard. It's very hard. Space is very unforgiving and hard. And realizing that and not taking a step back and doubling down on the conviction and the capability of our Indian scientists has made these achievements possible. So that is one key thing of the push from the government. That ISRO had, the support, the unquestioning, unconditional support that ISRO had made this possible, and of course the conviction to transform the industry by getting this private space industry also has enabled now, as you mentioned, there's a lot of talent in India. Yes. But previously ISRO was the only avenue for an aerospace or a space engineer if they want to have a career in space industry. And it is changing now. Now there are multiple startups, and a decade from now, like there'll be like a plethora of opportunities for a space engineer. They need not work in a government sector alone. There's a plethora of private industrial opportunities for a space enthusiast or a space industry enthusiast to find his or her career in space industry. So that is a transformative. This space reforms. From a talent perspective, it's a transformative choice for the Indian talent. Like they need not stick to very traditional opportunities. If an aerospace engineer need not coerce themselves to stick to an IT job when there's a plenty of opportunity in the field of their interest. So that is very much transformative and like liberating experience that Indian talent pool is going to experience due to space reforms.
How much of a role would you say the government support behind ISRO, behind the space movement, the space sector has played in the last half a decade, the last decade?
Yeah, so with government support has been the key thing that has given the conviction for ISRO to go ahead and press on the hard objectives. Like they faced a huge challenge with respect to failure of Chandrayaan, and the first landing attempt in Chandrayaan, and the government support to immediately give a go ahead for the next landing attempt.
Correct.
With gave them the conviction now they have planned for all failure scenarios, and they ensured that the Chandrayaan landing was a success in the next attempt. And the space, now there is a roadmap of space. The Indian government has announced the roadmaps for the space till 2040. We are going to build a space station. Like the ISRO has, like there's no dearth of challenge for ISRO now. Like they enjoy, ISRO as a organization enjoy taking upon challenges, and now there's a huge challenge given by the government to ISRO to accomplish, and we are going to see wonders in the next decade. We're going to have our own space station built, and we're going to have a reusable launch vehicle being planned by ISRO. So all these things, with the right mandate to the right team, the team can achieve wonders, and we're going to see that.
You mentioned the next decade. I'm going to go a little further ahead and talk about the space future a little. I mean, some of the talks that go on are, I mean, even 15 years back, they would have been baffling.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Cruise is planning to shoot a movie in space.
Yeah.
Skyroot itself, I learned that cabs are being planned for space travel.
Okay.
And I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you can tell us, what does the future hold? Like exactly how much is possible?
Decades from now, it's going to be transformative. But the key thing that's going to transform the space industry is the space access cost. Like as currently the key, like the access to space, taking anything from Earth to orbit is extremely expensive even today, and like that is something we are all working towards as by building space access technologies. The technologies like reusable launch technologies, everything is trying to solve for this space access technology cost, reducing the space access technology cost. But currently, with the current cost, there are commercially viable applications like Earth observation and communications from space. We're going to see broadband from space soon. Like you must have heard of Starlink, OneWeb kind of constellations. So we are going to see like a broadband from space very soon in this decade. But in the next decade, what we're going to see is something totally transformative. We're going to see manufacturing in space. As we're seeing, more and more space stations will be built, not just by the governments, by the private industry.
Wow.
There'll be space stations built in private industry. There'll be manufacturing activities that will be going on in space, because there are some particular manufacturing activities like in the pharma industry or in the optical fiber industry, where manufacturing in microgravity environments will give its unique advantage for those medicines or a optical fiber that is drawn in a microgravity is much more efficient. And all these things have already been proven in International Space Station, but it is not commercially viable now to manufacture, set up a manufacturing unit in mass in space now. So, but if space access cost decreases by order of magnitude, this plethora of applications will come into place. It's not just Earth observation or communication applications anymore. The manufacturing in space will become a reality. Space tourism will become more viable. We're going to see. We are already hearing about space tourism, but it will slowly become the rich only to maybe slightly less rich also can afford, and eventually maybe in two decades, like it will become a truly space tourism activity even for the middle class community to achieve. So like all these possibilities we're going to see in the next 2 decades, and the entire economy is going to transform from Earth-based economy to a space-based economy.
Wow.
So that is going to be transformative. We are going to get resources from nearby asteroids, from moon. So whatever resource that is scarce on Earth might not be scarce on moon. We are going to get those things, and like so the entire economy is going to get transformed with by just reducing the space access technologies cost, and the transformation to space-based economy we're going to see in the next two decades for sure.
Incredibly fascinating. So what in the past used to be just a phrase across the universe will soon become an actual reality, that across the universe, not here, let's get it from there.
Yeah.
Incredible. So fascinating. I want to ask you how, when it comes to the Indian government's vision, as far as ISRO is concerned, the reforms that you mentioned, getting the private sector completely involved in this is concerned, when it comes to Prime Minister Modi's vision, because he's been so vocal about it as far as ISRO is concerned as well, how much of those, how encouraging was that, say, for a young entrepreneur when you were starting out in 2018, 18, 19, 20, to see that moment when Chandrayaan 2, for the lack of a better word, failed, but then to instantly see that work for Chandrayaan 3 has started as well? How encouraging was that for two young entrepreneurs in the form of you and Pawan?
Yeah, it is not. That is one of like the sign of great support for ISRO has always been encouraging, and not just that. Like even like what was more encouraging was even before space reforms were announced, Prime Minister directly held one-on conversations, like closed room conversations with the existing space startups to take their feedback directly.
Private startups as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even before formally announcing, to understand what our need is basically. So that much of this, that shows immense personal interest on like making this happen. Like there's a lot of conviction from Prime Minister office level, from Prime Minister Modi and the Prime Minister office, to ensure that they not only do the space reforms but they do it right, and they do what space industry, private industry wants, what is useful. So that approach with which they have taken up the space reforms was also like hugely inspirational, because we got to interact not just once but twice in the process of space reforms being announced. And
Wow.
and the kind of the wordings used in the space reforms were actually even taken from some of the representations we have given. Also, like things like having a level playing field for all the players in the industry. So all these things, it was like being like we have our own notions about government. As a layman, like we think that government will take their own time. Even if we write a letter or a representation, they might read or might not read with all sincerity. But the fact that they have actually read what we have sent, and taken the gist of it and actually observed and presented in the consolidated space policy they presented, like that like actually took my trust in the entire government ecosystem also to the next level. And it was a hugely inspirational moment for us, the whole announcement of space reforms that are aligned with our thought process and our ideas that we have shared. So that was a great experience for us basically.
Amazing. Lovely, lovely. Youngster, a young student, class 6, class 7, space enthusiast.
Okay.
Loves learning about it, loves watching movies, wants to make a career for that. What is the path that they can choose? What are the things that they can decide to study in their higher education? Where are the places that they can try to look for internships to make a career in the space sector, be it government or private?
Okay. So, like you're talking about a 6th, 7th class student,
You
like
can, a young Indian, say from class 6 to class 10th, whichever.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in school, like one key thing that we need to focus in school, any young engineer should focus in school, is to get their first principles right in maths, physics.
Right.
Chemistry also, but my maths, physics is actually like, getting the first principles right in maths, physics is one of the baseline requirement, because lot of the lacuna in current talent pool we see is not having good fundamentals. Like having good fundamentals is key to learn. Like learning application knowledge is a lot easier task when you grow up than learning fundamentals.
Correct.
So learning fundamentals is a lot easier task in school. So basically, even though just because you're interested in space sector, of course you can learn a lot about space applications, what it means to do an interplanetary missions, how a rocket works, and all the stuff for sure in parallel. Learning application early, application knowledge, what space sector do, but getting the fundamental physics and maths principles very robustly learned in school is one of the key thing that no one can take away, and that will be useful in irrespective of the field of application you end up working in. So my strong advice to people in school willing to work not just in space sector but any core deep tech, STEM, hard technologies sectors, having strong fundamentals in math and physics is going to be a huge boon, where it just enhances your ability to learn any application specific. You can be an aerospace engineer, you can be an aeronautics engineer, you can be a robotics engineer, anything like later if you want to learn robotics, it's just a matter of a concentration for 3 months on what it means to learn robotics. But the key instruments are the faculty, intellectual faculty that you need to have are the fundamentals to learn any application. So concentrating on that will be my core advice, and cracking space application is something that can be done on the job once you get to the.
This is actually incredible advice
Yeah.
from a man who has created this space itself. So yeah, if you got your base strong, when you have your base strong, then when you keep growing up, you keep learning more things. But that base is very important, as you said. That fundamental is extremely important. Bharat, what would be your advice for young entrepreneurs who especially want to get into the field of space sector? Because you yourself started your journey when even the reforms hadn't happened. So it was very challenging back then. So what would be your advice for young entrepreneurs who want to get into the space sector, the private space sector for India?
So my advice now is now the ecosystem is totally different. There is strong regulatory support from government, and even the venture capital funding ecosystem has developed a strong thesis, and they to invest not just in space tech, in hard tech startups. There are more institutional investors that are open to invest in hard tech. So the platform is most like the ecosystem is more conducive. But only thing they need to concentrate on is finding the right niche, like the key problem they're trying to solve, and ensure that they're solving it in a unique way, and there are unique way, in a way that there are very few people in the world trying to solve it that way. So like finding the right niche in what you're trying to target is the key thing that my suggestion is to not do the same thing that so many other people are doing. So finding the right niche is going to be the key differentiator or USP that you're going to have while starting a venture in space domain. And it need not be just upstream domain. You need not like it need not be just in the rockets or satellite manufacturing. It can be there a lot of downstream activities with respect to using space data as such. So like the space data based or geospatial analytics based domain also has a huge opportunity. So on all these domain, like people can explore and getting that right niche done is sufficient, and all the other ecosystem is already in place, and like you'll get to meet enough investors who can fund your plan, and it is all the environment is conducive, but for finding the right niche is the only right thing that they need to be careful about.
Lovely, lovely. You know, half a decade back, 4 to 5 years back, when we talk about startups in the private space sector, they were very limited, very few. In fact, we're talking about 4 to 5 years back, so you guys were the ones, you guys were the absolute starting ones. Now, there are more than 200. What would you say has been like one major changing point when it comes to Indian space sector in the private world as well?
So, on one hand, this entire Startup India initiative that I started 5 years ago has generally given the youth that entrepreneurship as a given that legitimacy in the Indian societal fabric because of this campaign. That given that legitimacy in Indian societal fabric, that entrepreneurship is a valid career choice, and it is not frowned upon anymore. So that gave the liberty to the Indian youth to actually the number of course, not just in space sector, but general startups also. If you see the numbers,
Huge.
they're huge. So that is one factor that naturally translated here. But to space in specific, what added that extra boost is the specific space reforms that enabled space startups to utilize the public infrastructure, and so this active push from the government to form a regulatory and promotory body that helps, and there's a promotion exercises. They are doing courses, they are doing investor meets actively. So all these initiatives by the regulatory and promotory body in space domain also has helped many people to start. And of course, due to space reforms, and few of our early stage startups have proven their capabilities. So the industrial VC ecosystem also has at least at a seed funding level, the multiple people have come forward to do a seed funding for hard tech, space tech startups. So all these scenarios have helped many people to start their venture, and a good number of them are able to raise capital to start their initial work, at least to get to the MVP, minimum viable product level. So both I can say a mix of both the Startup India initiative, which is on a blanket level helped in not just in space tech domain, in all domains, but a specific initiative of space reforms and the in space promotory and regulatory body formation in space domain also helped enhance the confidence level for space entrepreneurs to take the plunge.
Lovely, lovely. I was talking just about the space sector, but you mentioned Startup India as well.
Yeah.
You guys started in 2018.
Yeah.
The startup boom was just about to kick in.
Yeah.
It was just happening. We are 6 years down the line, and India's startup ecosystem is the third largest in the world, compared to like 15 years back, 2 decades back, when you said you used to be frowned upon. Indians were great at doing jobs, used to go out and do jobs for other companies. But now, startup ecosystem, third largest in the world. How much of a role do you think the digital boom that has happened in the country played behind this? I mean, so much so, when I talk to international experts of AI and everyone, they come to India, they say the way UPI is used here, it's not even used in countries in Europe and the Western world.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, how much of a role do you think the digital boom and the digital push by the government of India has played behind this huge startup culture boost?
Yeah, as you rightly pointed, like fintech, we're absolute best in the world. We're number one in the world in fintech, hands down to UPI. So one other sector which has seen a huge boom of startups is, of course, is fintech, and pure like the niche and sophistication of our fintech startup is unmatched.
Second to none.
Is unmatched in the world, and everyone are simply awestruck by the government the NPCI infrastructure, not just in UPI, the ONDC. Now they've introduced ONDC, and the number of startups are leveraging the ONDC framework now, and starting into e-commerce domain. It is going to like the baseline public digital infrastructure that is built by government, and like letting the private industry build on top of it is going to be just a transformative. It has been transformative in fintech. It is going to see fruition due to ONDC kind of initiatives in e-commerce domain, and this is a thing to learn for the world from India, hands down.
Lovely, lovely. I want to ask you, you've been a space enthusiast yourself. Now you're a pioneer in the field itself. When Chandrayaan 2 didn't become a success, and then Chandrayaan 3 did, and the whole world was watching, whole of India was watching. What were you guys watching here at Sky?
Yeah, we were watching it. It was in the evening time, so it was all of us in our office. We were watching the time.
From office itself?
Office itself. It was in the evening around 5:40 or 6 p.m.
Yes. What was that moment like when Somnath sir said India is on the moon? What was that moment like?
No, it was like we were already on the moon before he made the statement, but like it was like the extreme confidence was there, because even before, like one thing Somnath sir said that still rings in a years before even the landing attempt was made, is that Chandrayaan 2 was designed for success, Chandrayaan 3 was designed for failure.
Wow.
So that is like one thing that even still reverbs with us, and that principle or that thinking process we apply even in our our design and analysis, that failure mode thinking is something that is taken to the extreme level in Chandrayaan 3. There is no way it can fail. Is a strong confidence we could see from that sheer statement. So we were personally absolutely confident that it'll land, and it is just, but still, like, it'll always be finger cross moment when the time comes as such. And it has done one of the most smoothest, softest landing for any lander that has experienced. And we've been the first to reach to that south pole also,
The lunar, yes.
the lunar south pole. And it was just an amazing experience for the whole team. We've been watching from here, and like, it's all party time thereafter. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. The success of Chandrayaan 3, one of the reasons behind, after that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced the National Space Day. Your take on that?
Yeah, it was certainly the most important thing, because we used to have something called World Space Week before, but like, having an Indian achievement anchor to a national anchor as a national space day, and there's no better thing than the landing day of Chandrayaan 3, and marking that as a national space day is going to reverb that it is only not only going to instill in the pride factor of one of the most significant achievements of our Indian space community over the years, but also recursively, like, plan activity and, like, the space, both for as a career, as a pathway in your life, is going to that idea is going to be instilled recursively, and schools and universities can have some programs around it. That celebratory nature has its own advantage. We should have this celebratory rituals for this impeccable milestones we achieved, and having National Space Day celebrate every year in the future is going to result in great memories for us, and of course great inspiration for the school and university ecosystem that happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to ask you, this is not just as a pioneer entrepreneur, as somebody revolutionizing the space sector, but also as a young Indian. When, say, 20 years back, 25 years back, we used to talk about space, we used to only talk about NASA. A movie was made, Swades, where it was just NASA. The last decade, the last half a decade, when we talk about space, it's all ISRO. It's all ISRO and India's achievements and all that India is doing in the space sector now with the private players as well. How proud does that make you feel?
Yeah, indeed. And actually, just to mark, you mentioned about Swadesh. In Swadesh, if you see, if you observe keenly, they show at the end he goes to join Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Trivandrum.
Exactly.
So, like, no, just to, because you mentioned Swadesh, I was pointing out. But the thing is, like, yeah, that is been, like, ISRO as a brand. Like, not just a space research just a research organization. ISRO has become a brand.
Exactly.
And that is a transformative thing. And, like, we are seeing more and more merchandise, private people, like, partnering with ISRO, making merchandise, and people are like, the one singular metric for a brand is how common public are willing to wear that brand.
Exactly.
And ISRO has become a brand, and that is going to be that is hugely transformational. And we see we've seen instances of Western media not covering our Mars mission in good light. There used to be some articles in Western media, like, I don't want to mention explicitly, but
Correct.
And that also has changed.
Yes.
We are seeing like, media in US and other people covering our space activities in good light. Not with an instance of India is doing space missions, like with awe and respect. That has been transformative. So the brand recognition of ISRO and the awe and respect towards the capability of ISRO across the world. And we've been personally attending some of the international conferences in space tech, of course, along with ISRO also attends. And, like, we see the outlook and ISRO outlook and the respect towards ISRO has been just simply transformative over the last few years towards our achievements.
Lovely.
It's a great thing.
Bharat, we are almost towards the end of the podcast. Before we let you go, I want to ask you one last question. What does the future hold as far as Indian space is concerned, both keeping ISRO as the main player, keeping the private players involved? What does the future, both near and distant, hold?
So the future is a future of uh, co-development with with private industry. ISRO is going to transform to like how NASA is operating in US. Like ISRO is going to focus on interplanetary exploratory missions, and even in those missions, there's going to be an active participation of private industry, as more and more private industry people like us prove our capability, not just in launching, building satellite, launching launch vehicles, building space systems end to end. As more private industry proves capabilities, even in the exploratory missions of ISRO, ISRO is going to co-develop those activities with the private industry. So private industry and ISRO are going to together drive the next 2 decades of transformation that we're going to see with respect to the ISRO missions also. And we hope that only thing we hope is like the more and more impetus will be given by the government of India, which they're already doing, towards the ISRO's missions to achieve these hard targets the ISRO has on time. Basically.
Absolutely. And we will definitely have those achievements done and a lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to an end of GDP at MyGov for today. Bharat, thank you so much for giving us your time, for talking to us. It was an absolute pleasure, and the entire country and very soon all of the world is going to be watching you guys and ISRO to create more and more history.
Thank you, correct. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, do leave in the comments how did you find this episode of GDP at MyGov. And of course, subscribe to MyGov India for more content just like this that you see only here at MyGov India. This is me, Korak Roy. See you in the next podcast.